No, let's get them both of those chairs.
He's not fishing.
I'm ready.
Going to Hamilton in a couple
Ready
days.
for snow this weekend?
Yeah. Just like last year, so.
So if you would choose your bike there, and I'll keep track of the other stuff, and I'll also make copies on scale.
Would you want me to?
Give it to the people.
What was that
so they
number for
don't-
the one?
And she didn't follow
Time on price per
in the newspaper.
linear foot. It's 150, no, 150 foot. Is there a number?
With a 500 feet loss, but,
Right.
wait a minute, no, no.
No, it was 150. That's just like on
I guess you're right up.
or, yeah, Jared's number, he said, that's the best number we're gonna have until she gets through the protest phase and actually get it out.
Great.
They know what that number is, it'll be so good number.
Intake.
In here, we got well, 11.
Yeah, I couldn't follow her thing,
Yeah.
her numbers.
I just got a glimpse. Yeah, it's only giving you remember.
That's, yeah, that's in the paper.
That's in the paper.
We ran it and on the second time this week. We need to get it done before end of the year. And then, next, but we won't do anything, that's what we're figuring out. Like, without protesting and whatnot. And they put, and there's instructions in the paper on how to protest, right?
Well, I missed that completely.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't see it.
It's gotta be on there 'cause she references it, right? This will have to be tabled because I didn't get it in time, so. The letter from Mary.
Hmm.
She came at 5:32 today. All right, we call this meeting to order. Everyone had a chance to take a look at last month's minutes. If so, any additions or corrections or changes? Not, take a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Give it a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Agenda, that's pretty straightforward. We only got a few topics tonight.
New business fuel tank.
I also need to add a permit for the Ducks Unlimited Banquet, raffle permit.
For
For
what?
the Ducks
Oh.
Unlimited Banquet?
Okay. Agenda has, it's good to me. Anyone see any other changes? If not, I'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion.
Jeffrey, a second. Larry, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Looks like we don't have any visitors on the agenda for tonight. Reports. Bill, Tom, what do you got for us?
Little water issue there with the water tower. the pump out south of town wasn't, or the sensor wasn't shutting the pump off. Well, we'll get into that later, but, so then it was filling the tower more than what it should have been, and then it overflowed. And that's where a lot of our water issue was coming from. And then, Steve, that old house was Steve Slinkers, that used to own that white one. Some hunter stopped over at his house at 1 o'clock in the morning and said his basement was flooded with water.
They had to put waders on to go down in the basement.
So what they did, they just kinda kinked the pipe over until we found the curb stop and we were able to get the curb stop off. So there's no water there anymore. Well, there's water there, but it's off at the curb.
How long is that going?
I don't know, cause he was here for the weekend of Duck Fest, and that was the first time he was here since last year at the same time.
Okay.
I can read the meter and find out.
Yeah. Just curious.
Anything else?
I think so.
Okay, you got that issue with the pump taken care of then now?
Yep. It actually wasn't the sensor, it was a line going to the sensor was plugged. So then it was an automatic 70 pounds of pressure in that line. It wasn't letting it go up or down to kick the pump in and out. And just shoved the metal piece of rod in there and unplugged it. And I figured that out. We had to replace the ignition on, or Tom did, replace the ignition on the lawnmower, somehow it got broke off.
Okay.
And I think that's about it.
Sam, what do you have for us?
I don't have anything for you guys,
Okay,
other than, there was a resident that left their water bill unpaid. It can't be turned off because they've left, so I don't know what you want me to do about that, other than add it to their taxes when that time comes.
I suppose. Okay. Mr. Heflin, water sewer, police.
Nope.
Mr. High, Park Streets Lighting Library.
Any more lights out there? You see, I had Steve, replace that one down here,
Yep.
and I went up later with
As far as I know, there's, nothing.
That's it.
Okay, I talked to Steve as well, and we're getting, did you sign those papers for Steve?
Yep.
We're getting, as these lights go out, they're replacing with LEDs, but it sounds like they only had like 2 in stock, 2 on hand, so.
As they fail.
As they, he said they're waiting to get more, because I think he said there's another one in town that he said needs to go, so. Mr. Larson, garbage airport in until. Fire and building permits?
Amy Doctor, demolition of house, Dwight Lee shingles, Troy Nelson a deck, and Bernie Jaskin driveway.
Can you say those one more time, I couldn't hear?
Oh, Amy Doctor, demolition
Okay.
of house, Dwight Weiss shingles, Troy Nelson deck, and Bernie Jaskin driveway.
Thank you.
Get a motion to approve those?
So moved.
Andy?
Second.
Mr. High, second, all in favor?
39.
Opposed? Motion carries. Old business, we have more engineering. We approved the district for the street project, engineer report. That includes cost estimate along with map of the street work already done. Engineer's report, and we adopted the resolution of necessity. Talked about retaining wall at the park. Demolition with $500 deposit for, what building was that?
That was for the church, the Fay,
Okay,
and Trevor Moldenhauer.
okay. And then, did we do anything, what were we gonna do with Dean and his request for water? Wasn't he gonna gather some more information, was he gonna talk to someone about putting it in, or?
Yeah, was I talked to Vaughn about that, B-Wall, and they said they have to bore it, you know, underneath the road, obviously. And then that'll all have to be up to the county to pay for all that.
Okay. Alright, so nothing we really need to do there. Okay, on to new business. So, number one, Jeff and I met with our two candidates for, the city auditor position, as Sam is stepping down. Both were good interviews, but Jeff and I both agreed that we liked one candidate a little bit better, so, how this works is, we make a recommendation and the board then has to approve. Andy will have to abstain for reasons of conflict of interest. So our recommendation was Sherry Schlecht, I don't know why I say your last name, Sherry Schlecht for the position. I did have a talk with the other person and let them know our decision. So that's our official recommendation, I guess up to Larry and Mr. Schroeder to confirm.
I move we accept Sherry Schlecht's recommendation and employ her as auditor.
Okay,
I'll second that.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, Sherry.
Thank you.
I suppose we should probably talk compensation. And I know we said we're gonna probably go with an hourly rate, followed by a salary position after experience has been gained. We still feeling that way? And if so, where do we wanna start at?
Where was Sammy?
You remember when you were hourly, was it 12?
I think it was 12 or 12.50.
See, I think, yeah, I thought it was more.
It was moved a couple times before it was moved to salary.
It was it?
Yep.
Okay.
I mean, I can try
Oh,
and
and how,
close
so
down.
it doesn't matter, how long have you been doing it, 6 years?
6 years.
So, started 15, that's 6 years ago.
I was gonna say 6 years ago, I'm comfortable with 15.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that sounds good to me.
15 per hour.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay, I'll take a motion on that then.
I'll move to,
Larry,
yeah, I'll move to start a wage at $15 an hour.
second,
Awesome.
Jeffrey, all in favor,
Aye.
opposed? All right, now on to some unfortunate news I received from Trish Lane. I can't remember what her title is with the county. She's responsible for assessing the value of our properties in town. And that information then, when we have our tax equalization meeting, her information along with the state's guidelines on where we fall with how our properties are valued, that comes up with our tax rate and what we increase or don't increase. I know last year, they recommended 8% and we went 0 and fought the state on it and actually came out okay. This year, they recommended 10%, I believe, and we went up 8. But the state, after review, came in and said the values of the properties aren't in line, and I'm gonna up another 8%, I believe, effective immediately. Anyone being impacted by it apparently is gonna get a letter from the state or from the county, I'm not sure which. So, so all you sitting out there think, well, 16% in a year is a lot, I believe it is a lot. And if you're like me, you're probably pissed off. And we've had almost every meeting with her, we've told her she needs to get over to gackle and assess her property. And she continually fails to get her job done. Therefore, we get hit with stuff like this. I also had a talk, so she is employed by, I guess our,
Under the new legislation, it's the county.
it's the county, it's the county's job, so I just had a lengthy conversation with one of our county commissioners. The 3 people who sit in that position were Blanche Schumacher of Napoleon, John Wald, and Dean Ensminger. So if you're unhappy with your tax rate, those are the people to talk to. Because unfortunately, I said, can we appeal or fight? I was told, we can file an appeal or refuse to include the tax. I would just end up us in district court, being sued by the state. So, no real options that we have, because obviously we're not gonna win that fight either. So, pretty disappointed, but after our last conversation, maybe she'll get her stuff done. Because she just has to keep track of Napoleon, Fredonia, and gackle, and how many property sales are there. So it's disappointing, but it is what it is. More engineering recommendations. So I was talking with Jared a little bit more in regards to if we were gonna get some more finalized number before this protest period was up. And he said that getting anything more, he felt really good about the numbers. If anything, they're conservative probably, as we're probably not gonna do those two sections. But that he felt good with the $150 a foot estimate. He thought if anything, it would probably come down from that. And that is the information that people, because apparently we won't actually do anything with assessment until next June or July, or even August. And then once that's done and an official bid is made, that's when we know finalized numbers. So I unfortunately told you incorrectly last month. So that number, anyone who is gonna protest, that is the number to which we feel comfortable saying is a safe number.
I understand what Moore Engineering has and the numbers that they had at the meeting, but the council was also gonna give us other alternatives. And I know Moore Engineering is in charge of that. And I know, just like I use as an example with my husband, I like a Cadillac SUV, but if I can't afford one, I have to afford what I can afford. And so if it's a cheaper used car, that's the one I have to buy. And I understand Moore said $4 million some plus dollars, but even though we may not be happy, there are other alternatives to fixing these roads. And I think that's what, when I just read this letter that Mary Conrad sent, that you said you're putting in the meeting minutes tonight.
It won't be tonight, it'll be next month. She sent it in about 5:30, so it didn't.
And I just got it too, so I didn't read it thoroughly, but the deal is that she too is thinking about what are these alternative methods and how can you have a protest period when you haven't opened up the assessment board that we know of and you haven't redone the assessments dollar-wise to show us what each property is gonna cost. Yes, we can figure it out, but there's nothing like you handed out last November. And I think that's what she's questioning, plus the time frames, you know, the 30 days when it started. Like I said, I'd have to go and highlight everything and go through it with you. But where are the alternative methods? I know Randy Miller said, I guess at the meeting that I missed last year in the fall, that, you know, maybe $400,000 the city could go and buy used equipment. And I understand, people don't want to hear that, and the guys would have to get training on how to repair a section at a time or something. And I certainly understand that it wouldn't be what Moore Engineering wants, but at least it would be repaired roads, which all of us would like, and it wouldn't cost us $4 million. And so that's, I don't think anybody does not want roads fixed. And so that's what she's trying to bring up, and that's what we're trying to bring up. Why aren't you looking at some of these other alternatives and discussing it? Because you're not discussing it at these meetings, you know, the city council meetings and that, and we haven't had any special meetings to discuss it at. That's all we're trying to bring to you to understand.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
No, it's, I mean, so I don't know what meetings you have and haven't been to, but we've had this discussion in regards to it. No.
Go on.
And we've had the same discussion a dozen times in a public setting. And
we haven't had a dozen meetings about this. We had one last year and one.
No, I'm just saying where we've discussed it. I mean, this topic has come up, I mean, so many times in the last 2 or 3 years. And I'm not gonna go, we're not getting into a back and forth.
No, I
I'm
don't
trying
wanna
to
go
be
back and
kind
forth. I'm
and trying to answer your question, so.
Right. so
If we go
yeah.
the $2 million route and do a 10-year fix, that actually increases your yearly cost if you're gonna make your payment.
Mhm.
We talked about going back to gravel, and that's gonna cost somewhere in the neighborhood of $2 million to go back to gravel. So, not even on the table. Buying $500,000 worth of equipment, I mean, this is gonna take an engineering company and a group of, I don't know how many people of a team to do our streets because then they're in such bad repair, so, and
Okay,
we're not-
go on,
so,
I'm listening.
all I'm saying is, the $150 per foot, and we have information available, we had a public meeting, we plan on
Yep.
having another one, I plan on putting out a mailer. You've got till, it's still a month to protest. And so, the decision that council made in the best interest was to go with the project that we presented at the fire hall, and that's the plan we're going with, so. I
So there's
understand.
no other alternatives?
We're
that
not
you're
looking at
addressing?
any other, I mean,
Okay.
we're not engaging in any other alternatives other than ones we've already looked at. I mean, we've had 3 to 4 alternatives that we looked at, but they're just not feasible. So, I mean, they just don't make sense. So, that is the method that we decided to go with, and those are the numbers that we have. And if enough people say they don't want it, then there we are. So that's our plan. So,
Take it or leave it.
Well, as far as buying equipment, or, doing
Well,
it ourselves.
that was just one thing that I had heard at the meeting, and I thought, well, okay, then, at least we're coming up with other options. Like I said, I would like brand new roads. I had them in a different state where I live, and we paid an assessment for it. I understand this, I'm not dumb. But, there's only so many people in gackle, and their incomes aren't that great. And how are these people supposed to pay this on a monthly basis? And if we go up 20 years, we can't even go 30 or 40 because the roads will deteriorate within 3 to 5 years. So then how are these people supposed to pay it? And now we're on fixed income. If we were making $200,000 or $300,000 like we used to make, it'd be a different story. But we're on fixed incomes now, and I certainly don't want to take and be assessed for all of this for a new road and then have to struggle. That's not why we bought a cheap home in a very small town.
What I was gonna
And
say
that's what I'm
is,
trying to get across. I understand you guys say, well, they're not feasible, but there are smart people in the community that have other ideas, and they could be feasible if you would address it with them. And that's what we're trying to get through to you guys, that I don't think that you're actually listening to the other ideas and trying to negotiate. Nobody feels like working hard on roads, and I understand that, but we haven't been repairing the roads. And nobody is repairing them now. That cap out here on the corner is almost ready to be cracked. If another semi comes and turns the corner, and hits it, it's gonna be cracked. Why hasn't it been fixed? At least a little gravel around it to support that little cap. Nobody's done that. That's why I think a lot of people are frustrated with this.
what are some other alternatives? You said buy equipment.
Well, I'm not
do it
the
ourselves.
smart one, I'm not a mechanic, but I've seen people work. And there are people in the audience and other people that were here that made suggestions, and you guys said, no. I understand. I'm not even an engineer. But you certainly fixed the roads in front of Miller, you had a big truck or whatever the hell it was, and you fixed the road, and you did a good job. Yeah, it wasn't perfect, and yes, it didn't go down deep enough, but at least it was fixed so people could drive over it. So why can't that be done instead of having new roads?
because it's gravel. And it doesn't stay, like Bill and Tom have put so much
Well,
gravel on the east side of town and it's
And
gone.
tar and asphalt, and it just keeps coming out.
You
That's
know,
right, new roads are gonna fall apart after 3 years, look what they did in '94.
Well, they won't
And they
fall
had
apart
5 years.
3 years.
Well, I don't think they're gonna
There's
hold up
something
now.
that you gotta realize too, any expenditure over, I believe is it 100,000?
Yep.
Needs to have an engineer's signature.
Okay, I didn't know
That's
that.
where we get our hands tied up. We can't do a project over $100,000 without an engineer's signature.
My concern, I worked in public aid for over 20 years. I know what poor people are, And I have seen very, very poor people with no food. And like I said before, half of your people in this city are on welfare or Medicare or Medicaid or cash assistance. 40 people are identified as single-parent households. How can they afford this? That's what I'm trying to bring up and other people are concerned about.
They have an opportunity for a protest period just like the rest of us. If it passes, it passes.
Alright,
Can I ask a question? Address you folks. And Marilyn, it would be great if we had a labor force.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, if we,
I'm well aware of it.
and if we have the machinery and had actually people hired that were competent, that could be doable. But we have no competent labor force here, other than,
So Greg, how do you take 4 million and
What?
split it up between 200 or
I don't,
150
I
households?
don't think we can. My question to the board is, we were talking about alternatives, and I'm not a road construction guy, engineer or anything, but is there an alternative? And I know it's not long-term, but I know that anything that's deep and boiled up has to be dug out. Or you can put whatever you want over the top, it's just gonna boil again. But aren't there, I thought you could do competent repair jobs with oils, petromat, and you're familiar with petromat. And those streets that are not boiled so horribly structurally may hold together. Is there an alternative where we can dig the bad ones and do oils, gravels, and petromat on the others? I know that product has been used for years. How structurally sound it is, I don't know. But is there a less expensive alternative? I don't know, I'm just asking.
I mean, not that we've been through this with 2 different engineering companies, and, I mean, like.
Where
you
they
said-
asked that question.
Well, I mean,
You know, one thing that I know in one of the discussions, and this goes back several years, and this came from an engineer, he says, one of the downfalls with gackle is the elevation changes. We have so many elevation changes. So you try to go back to gravel, putting gravel over the pavement will never work, because if there's no bonding, and we've got gutters. If we actually wouldn't have gutters, we'd be in better shape from the fact then we could fill. But right now, we got gutters, so we can't do that, so we gotta cut the pavement. If you follow the way the water, and I would encourage you to go out in the rain and watch how the water flows. Let's start at the old grocery store. The west half of Maine, that water heads down on the west curb, turns the corner at the bank, heads down to where the UCC church used to be. And then it usually, on a light rain, it'll pretty much, quite a bit of it continues west. On a heavy rain, it's gonna make a turn. And a lot of it heads south. It'll go on the west side of that First Avenue and head south. Down by John Miller's residence, it meets the water coming from Maine and from Marlene Elz's house. And then it goes down to Second Avenue by Andy Heflin's and it turns again and heads south. There's no way that we're gonna hold gravel with that amount of water flow. You take the east half down towards Sam, look at all the water that flows and tries to get into the park or through the park and head south. You know, a good example of that is, look this year. If you drove the rural road, Down by Dolls, a mile west and 5 miles north, it tore out part of the road. This was virgin dirt that had, or these roads, I mean, we lived there. I never seen a rut tore out like that. And that was from that water couldn't get into the ditch, so it was running actually on the shoulder of the road, and it tore the road out from the snowfall. On level surfaces, yes, I think we would actually, other than the dust issue, and there is components available.
But I'm not thinking of going to gravel, I'm thinking of the ones that are, if there are any, structurally sound, oil, petromat, oil tar.
And there are some, you know, on that map that was just overlay, I think, on it. What,
Yeah, there's
about a
13 or
third?
14 blocks, you know, that is gonna be just over there.
Yeah.
But, I mean,
And I don't know what the difference in cost is between petrol and,
I don't need it.
That's the, okay, so they're gonna do an overlay on some of them, but it's still gonna be the $4 million. And you're almost better off with the interstate. You know why I'm wondering, like this street here, we got a few bad places, but the whole street isn't that bad. You know, to tear it out and redo it all, and they're gonna redo this whole street. You know, there's a corner here and some potholes down by the junction, but other than that, it's not too bad to get down there. And I realize we gotta do some streets over there bad, that need to be all tore out and redone.
Well,
And you
you're
know,
right.
have you asked them, is there a $2 million plan to, you know, fix some of the really bad ones and patch up some of the others, or? You know, but then the problem is, would they even do it? They want, you know, they wanna come in, they wanna do it all.
well, no, I mean, not, cause they just bid it out.
Well, they're salesmen too, like, take Edgeley, Lauren, you know Edgeley. The Hall Road there, the truck road, by Allied Agronomy and the elevator, that was shot 4 years ago. Edgeley told Interstate to chip seal it. Interstate said that ain't gonna last a year, that was 4 years ago. It's held up pretty good. You know, they're salesmen. So, and I was actually approached by a city council member in Edgeley. You know, says, how can you afford $4 million in gackle? They're redoing all their roads and all they can afford is $2.5 million. But, I don't know, I just was wondering, is there any other options that, you know, the engineers would come up with, you know?
Doing the worst roads work first and patch, right?
Well, I mean, you know, like, there's a couple bad places on this road, I don't think we need to tear this whole street out and redo it yet, you know? But then again, maybe 10 years down the road, you'd be better off redoing it, all, I don't know.
The problem, I know talking with those guys, a big problem is the mobilization of getting a crew in.
Yeah.
Because when we were talking about, cause we talked about like a few blocks, I mean, we have looked at alternatives, and again, I'm not saying, well, I am saying I think this is the best one, but, I mean, we've looked at alternatives from, you know, going back to gravel thing, which not, you know, not gonna happen. Our patches really don't hold, so we're losing, I think, we're losing, spending $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 a year on just the patch stuff, and obviously, some of the worst stuff we can't patch. And the shorter time frame, short fixes that only last 10 years, leaves you, again, if we're talking fixed income, leaves you with a $2 million project spread over 10 years, instead of a $4 million spread over 20 years. So, it's gonna impact you the same, obviously for a shorter period of time, but then in 10 years, then we've got to redo the roads again. And, I mean, I think everyone can kind of see, like, if you look, I think this winter was really hard on them, because you look, 3 years ago, our roads weren't that bad. 2 years ago, like, well, it started really slow, and then after this last winter, I mean, we've had people crack rims and pop tires on these roads, and, I mean, we don't have the equipment or the product to replace these really terrible ones. I mean, we're filling in gravel on some level spots like over by John's, but it's so much time and effort, and it's not gonna work for much longer. And that's the information that we're getting from the company that we hired. I don't wanna speak for everybody here, but, I mean, I guess, if the protest, you know, is that strong, then, you know, the project dies, and I guess we just keep patching along as we can. But, I mean, it's not going to last, I mean, much longer, so.
So when do you want these protests in? At the next meeting that we have on the 4th of November,
I'll have
before
to-
this 11th meeting? Or
I have an email, I've just been a little busy, but I have an email, it's got all the information, and I believe it was gonna be run in the paper. I have not had a chance to look at the paper yet. But I believe everything that's needed is in the paper, but I will double check. And, I also have the information, the forms or whatever, so, I mean, I can get that to you too. So, and yeah, there's dates, but you have, I believe, a month.
Well, yeah, but during this time, if we want to give you the protest, then do we go to you or call you up or call the?
No, it's a phone, it's not a phone call thing, it's a form where you describe your property and.
I know what the form looks like because we got one,
Okay.
but I wanted to know.
And then you just.
Who do we give it to during this time frame?
I guess you could, probably should be mailed, right?
The mail would be probably your
Probably
best
should be
option,
mailed,
so that way it can be
Probably.
given to the auditor and the auditor presents it to the council.
Give it to the city auditor, right?
Yep.
Like you, Sam, if you were still here, or Sherry, no?
Yep.
Okay.
so
And they said they would take, once you do say that, they'll put red on on that big board to show
Yeah.
that you have
I
called.
feel
and it's been done.
uncomfortable giving a protest to Moore Engineering because then they're in charge of accounts and getting them and receiving them, or even putting them in the mail, because then they could get lost. So I'd rather hand somebody something, even if
You
they
can
date
leave them
stamp
at
it or I didn't
You can
stamp
put
it.
them through the
But
slot
he
here
had,
in the
he had
north.
said
No.
that board will be sitting there, and if you see that yours is not colored red,
Where?
the board they'll have, they'll put out of the town, and if you
On
don't
the
see it
11th.
highlighted red for your protest, then you're to come and say something so somebody can highlight it, so it shows
Okay,
which
Okay.
properties are protest.
okay.
yeah, I mean, obviously, we're not gonna, if we take and tear up your protest, obviously, you're gonna know by your property not being
I'm not
protested.
saying anything like that, Jeff,
Yeah,
but
no, I
I
know.
just feel uncomfortable doing that at this point, you know?
Well, I think we had discussed anyway, you could bring it in and hand it here, this.
Yeah, it
all
doesn't, you can hand it to
open.
me, or
Yeah.
drop it through the slot, or put it in the mail, or. Do I see a hand up back there?
Yeah, Jeff, I have a question. Has the city, looked into getting any grant money?
Yep,
And,
there isn't any.
my son took a quick search and he found $300,000 for a city our size. So,
Doing someone's
What
in
was
that,
that for? Was it,
because we have like an actual firm investigating for us, so I mean, if it's out there, great.
okay.
There's more engineers now.
who,
I didn't get the,
That'd be great.
I didn't
Yeah,
get, I know.
Get more
That's why-
information on that.
because every time we've tried for grant, it is for necessities, which is
Right.
water, sewer,
Yep,
pavement, or resurfacing of streets.
It's a beautification, it's not a necessity.
You do have a grant writer that is looking, that is hired for this, yeah. Unfortunately, I think a lot of those government grants for that dried up, that type of stuff.
That's because everybody needs them.
Yep. So, and again, I understand, not everyone's happy with it, but we're going through the process, you know, we, as a council, decided that this is the process that we wanna stick with, so we're gonna have the protest period, and people will speak, and, you know, if it's loud and clear that there's too many people who just don't wanna do it or can't do it, then, you know,
Absolutely.
then that's where we're at, but, and I appreciate everyone's feedback, certainly do, so. Gonna move on to Lions application for, they wanna do a fundraiser. Any motion to approve the Lions fundraiser?
So move.
Andy, second. Jeffrey, all in favor? Opposed? Okay, fuel tank, what'd you have on that?
Oh, Ardell had a fuel tank up there. It's actually an old sprayer, and that's leaking. I checked, a 500-gallon tank is about $850. And you know, we could, if we're filling at the pumps, we are paying road tax. Then I think it's what, 38 cents? If we fill, a tank, we could use the dyed fuel, the off-road fuel, in the payloader and the tractor. So it would save that tax. Do we wanna consider going to a tank?
I think it would pay for itself, doesn't it?
Take
I mean, 38 cents,
I'm all for it.
because that's only like 400 gallons.
Huh?
Only like 400 gallons of usage in the weeks. So, yeah. So, can I get a motion to approve that?
So move.
Andy, second?
I'll second.
Larry, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that's unlimited permit. Any a motion on that?
I'll make a motion.
Jeffrey, can I get a second?
I'll second
Andy, all in favor?
it. Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Thank you.
Date and time next meeting. So didn't we have it in the paper that was, we're meeting on the 11th, because Monday was Veterans Day? That right? So we're meeting on the 11th.
11th is Veterans Day.
Oh, the 11th is Veterans Day. Okay. Meeting on the 11th. 7 o'clock work for everybody?
Is this for the special meeting now for discussing the protests, or is this a regular monthly city council meeting?
This is our monthly city council meeting.
When exactly does the protest period start?
The day it was published in the paper, which I believe was, that was
The
this week,
second, I think, of February, last Wednesday.
last Wednesday.
Then 30 days is up before the 11th.
Excuse me, Arlene?
Isn't then 30 days up before the 11th?
Well, yeah, so the protest period ends, and then we have to tally the information that is a result of
I
it.
see.
So yeah, that was kind of how we had it planned.
I thought you just said the 11th is Veterans Day, so keep with the 4th then?
Keep it the 4th, I was.
Is that right? You said the 11th was Veterans, so keep with the 4th?
Yeah, keep it the 4th at 7. And, let's see. All right.
Yeah, after the bills.
Oh, why didn't I see that? Gotta go through the bills.
Demolition on here. Any of that demolition that we have got to do on here?
No.
Is that independent? Is that?
Do we have to approve anything for the park?
All independent.
Oh,
No, I think so.
I just saw that.
I just want, yeah, so I guess I can say that too here quick. So the park board dropped this off, they were supposed to have this done, when are these due, the reports, are they due in June? Cause he said these
Their
are,
reports or the budget?
this is, their budget.
Their budget is due September.
Oh,
The
okay.
final budget is due in September.
But they had turnover within their treasurer position and couldn't get it, so I know Mike Martin, who's the president of the board, has been working with,
Brenda Fisher.
Brenda Fisher to get all that squared away, so apparently he's taking care of what he needs to, and wanted us to be aware, year-end 2018 final budget was $19,385, projects for 2019, $17,650 for the ball diamond, $6,890 for the park board, or for AFL park improvements, and $6,000 estimated for their skating rink they're planning on. And tax allocation for 2020 is $15,000, and they expect donation of $5,000. So they wanted us to see all the stuff they've been working on and kind of how their books looked, so. Any questions on that? Okay, take a motion to adjourn. Oh wait, I didn't make a motion on the bills. Take a motion on the bills.
So move.
Second. Good to me. I'll second it.
Jeffrey, all in favor? Opposed? I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll move some.
Second?
Second.
Alright. That's gonna be a motion by Andy, second by Lauren. All in favor? Alright, thanks everybody for coming.
I don't have any.
Yeah. I didn't, you know, I pulled up Sunday.
Question.
Yeah.
Okay, we know the snow's gonna fly.
Uh-huh.
We know that. Is there a way we can keep the alley clear out? Hopefully my son gets out of the hospital. Here, let me put it to you. And he's gonna get wheelchair bound and get him up the steps.
I don't know anything.
Is there a way I can keep the alley
So
spot
it's
up so I
gonna
can
take me a
get
little bit of
in
learning
and
if I
out?
even know
In
which
case
place
I have
to
to run
look
back to
for.
the hospital.
Yeah, well.
Right now he has a trach in
Exists.
and all this.
Yeah, we can.
But if that's plowed over, I just
What are you doing?
let him know
Sam?
that
You're
Jeanette's
texting
gonna
me?
have an episode to have to go
But that's how she's.
to the hospital again.
I think in those circumstances, we can probably help out.
No, that's
I would
okay.
appreciate it,
Just, I
guys.
didn't know which.
And it's not gonna snow that much.
No.
Don't get crazy yet.
That's not this time, but, you know.
Yeah, eventually, you live in North Dakota, right?
We're in
They don't
this
take
town
a long
conflict.
time.
Yeah, and it is gonna snow.
Yes, yes.
That's what we're about. Nate's been in the hospital for over a month now. And he's just now barely sitting up. So I mean, to be able to get in and out of that. I appreciate it. Okay, thanks, guys.
That's for the Niners game. I'll go check it now.